Tranquilo. Shine.
Whoa, guys! It's another instance of I don't know stuff happening in the wild. Everybody likes the Beatles. Beatles are probably one of the most sought after records or bands that you can collect, and people are gonna harass you for it if you have it. You post a picture on your Craigslist with a Beatles record, you might get a couple of phone calls or your friends saying, hey man, you keep those records or what? But anyway, I had a buddy of mine who, he got a copy of Let It Be, and he's like, man, I don't like this. I really don't like this record. It doesn't sound very good. I said, it's Let It Be, man. It's one of the greatest records of all time. And he's like, yeah, man, you can have it. I was like, all right, man, ship it. So he sends me this record, okay? And I want to be very clear about this record. It doesn't really look like this record, does it? No, it doesn't. So the interesting thing about this is a counterfeit copy of Let It Be. Let It Be was one of the most counterfeited records of all time. And the reason is because it was the last record that the Beatles ever made. And when they stopped being the Beatles, the pressing ran out, and that was it. And so it took a number of years until about the mid-70s when you started to see those red capital labels and the purple capital labels. Those were the mid-70s represses of Let It Be. Before that, they looked something like this. This is the, take it out of the sleeve here. This is the Let It Be red apple label. I was told that it was red because the apple was finally ripe, right? The Beatles were done, the apple was ripe, it was a red apple. Only one they ever put a red apple, otherwise all apple labels were green. Unless you get into some of the solo Beatles work, when you look at like George Harrison's, like All Things Must Pass, those are on orange. There's some interesting ones that John Lennon did that are like faded, like sort of like tan apples and things like that. But this is the red apple from Let It Be. And this is an original pressing. This is a beautiful copy that I got, minus a sleeve. It's got a few, loving scratches on it, but this actually plays really nice. It's the original pressing, and again, what you're gonna do is you're gonna look at that matrix readout. So you're probably not gonna be able to see it in the light, but this one has the Phil and Ronnie AR13400 readout with the JS17500-27, and it's got the stamp for something sound, bell sound, I believe, maybe. Anyway, the interesting thing about this is that it came in a roach sleeve. The sleeve died on the vine, but the record was fine. So I kept it, and so anyway, let's get back to this one. So my friend sends me this record, and I play it, and it sounds like somebody has put their finger on the record while it's playing. It's definitely a slower. It was mastered at a slower speed. It doesn't sound right, and I assume that that's why my buddy Joe thought it sounded like crap, because it actually does sound kind of shitty. So the interesting thing about this, first of all, you're never gonna see a Beatles album that got cut because they all sold. So why did this one get cut? That's your first indication. Secondly, you're looking at the front of the actual cover. Is it obvious that this one looks more faded? You can look at the red behind Paul's head. You can look at the sort of faded out white. Everything's a little bit more grainy, okay? So if you see this in the wild, I would just avoid it, right? It's gonna be a counterfeit record unless you want it for the novelty of having it just because it's neat, I would avoid it because it doesn't sound good. And when you're looking at the actual record itself, again, we can compare apples to oranges here. Apples to apples. That's the red on that one, and that's the red on that one. Now, it doesn't look that bad. It looks a little faded, and that could be something that happens with time, but it's not right. And if you look at the readout, it's got a 17500 crossed out, and then it's re-stamped or re-etched with 17500, and that's the only markings on the entire record. That just wouldn't happen. That's not true, right? So if you pull a record out and it looks a little faded and you're seeing some weird matrix etching on it, and it doesn't have like the full stamp or the mastered at blah 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 facility, there's a good chance that you're holding a counterfeit Let It Be record. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys. This is just kind of a quick little fun little video that I found it in the wild. I thought it was, or my buddy found it in the wild, passed it on to me. I thought it was interesting enough to make a little video about it because it's neat. The Beatles were a prolific band, and certainly, rock and roll would not be what it is today without the Beatles. But it's all subjective. Some people are more like the Stones, man. I'm more of a Stones guy. I'm kind of an Elvis guy. You can like the Beatles and you can like Elvis, but you always like one more than the other. You know what I mean? It's like they cut that scene from Pulp Fiction too. All right. So anyway, be on the lookout. Don't buy a record that's gonna sound bad if you can help it. That's always my goal. Until next time, Nick Stock, I Don't Know Stuff, Vintage Audio Series. We'll talk to you soon. One quick note, guys, we have created a group on Facebook. It's just a place for us to kind of gather and hang out. It's mainly based around the community that we're starting to develop here in Colorado, but it has gone sort of nationwide. And so we would invite you to go on Facebook if you're on the Facebooks. If you're not, God bless you, you've done the right thing. If you are on Facebook, search The Vinyl Herd, H-E-A-R-D. Ask to join and come hang out with us and talk about bootleg Beatles records. Cheers.